In this video, we're going to introduce the concept of 3D text in After Effects. As I've explained in the previous video, text behaves much like shapes in After Effects. That is, the 3D engine, especially the Cinema 4D 3D engine, allows text to create volume based on the geometry or the vector information contained within the text. So for this, we're going to go ahead and create a new composition. And I am going to notice that my settings have been the same for the previous movies, the same ones as we used in the previous movies, so nothing changed. And what I'm going to do in this composition is I'm going to create a text layer. Now I can either create a text layer by going on the timeline and right-clicking and choosing new text, and then I start typing, which gives me a cursor in the middle, and it allows me to type. Or I can choose my text tool up here and start typing wherever I place my actual text cursor. So let me go ahead and select this text, and I'm going to make it smaller, probably 72 pixels is fine. And then I want to just go ahead and make copies of this same text. So Control C, Command V, Command V. I'm going to make several copies of it. And then I'm just going to have to edit this afterwards. So what I want to do at this point is one of two things. First, to turn text into 3D text is easy. It's just the same as with any other layer. I simply click on the 3D switch, and it's now 3D text. You will notice that if I switch my tool to the selection tool, I can go ahead and rotate this in 3D space, which is great. That works just fine. Let me go ahead and create a new camera, just so that we have a camera in the space that we're creating. And I'm just simply gonna place it there. And I'm gonna orbit that camera ever so slightly so that we can see that this is actually 3D text. Now it's 3D text. At this point, it's 2.5D text is what I like to call it. That said, let me undo the changing position of the camera, and let me go ahead and create an extrusion on this. For that, I need to make sure that I am in the Cinema 4D renderer, which I am. That's where we left it last time. And all I want to do at this point is I want to go dig into the geometry options for that layer. Now with that done, I can just simply go ahead and create an extrusion for this, let's say, of 20 pixels, and you really don't see much of a difference. Now you start seeing the text sort of getting thicker here and here. And the reason why you don't see any depth is because there's no light in this particular composition. So that's the tip. Anytime that you want to create extrusion, you need to have light in order to illuminate the actual elements in the 3D environment. Because if you don't, the program basically reads no lights, therefore everything has to be illuminated equally, and therefore you don't see the depth in the areas that you have actually created that extrusion. So I'm gonna create a new light. By the way, I use the shortcut, but you can always right-click on the composition window, New, Light. And we saw this when we were creating lights in the movie, in the module where we talked about creating lights, creating and controlling lights. So in this case, I'm going to create a spotlight with 100%. Actually, I'm going to create a point light in this case. So it's basically like a light bulb. So it's going to be shooting light in all directions, and I'm going to ask it to cast shadows. So I'm going to click OK on that, and you'll notice that right away I get texture in my composition. I get this text to be extruded, and so I have volume in the text. Now this is true 3D text. The good part of this is that this remains as a text layer, which means I can at any time add animators to that layer of any kind. So say, for example, I wanted to animate the position of these things. I can go ahead and click an animator and add a position animator. Now you'll notice that the position animator comes in and it only has two settings, X and Y. Same applies for rotation, and so I mean, if I apply anything, it's just going to have the basic dimensions. And the reason for that is because the default settings for any of these animators that I create for text are just the same as when I create the components for shape layers. And so they come in as default, as 2D. So for me to be able to pull out an extra dimension, the Z dimension, I need to go back into that animate drop down, and all the way at the top, there's the option to say enable per character 3D. When I do that, you'll notice that I now have a third dimension, the Z dimension. So I can go ahead and manipulate this in 3D space. Now, if I do this and I go ahead and manipulate the X, Y, and Z positions, you notice that I am changing the values of the text based on the actual animator. But remember, these animators come with their range selector. So if I go ahead and say, for example, I bring my entire text back here past the camera point. So if I bring it back here, actually, let me do the reverse. I want it to stop here. So in about 2 seconds, I want the text to be right where it's at. So I'm just going to go ahead and set a position keyframe for that. Then I'm going to go here and I'm going to pull this back towards me, pull it towards the camera on the Z-axis. So now it's behind the camera. And I created a new keyframe. So they will be coming in like this. Now with the range selector, I can go ahead and change the extension of this and change the position of each one of the pieces of text, having it come in as I need it to come in from the distance. So let's say I start here and I end up, say, here. Let's go ahead and actually change the out point. Sorry, I did it in reverse. So this is the 5 point. And if I start here at the start point, this is where everything starts. You will notice that only these two have come in so far. So let me move this here. And you'll notice that up to this point, I can control by placing the start point here, let's say, and then I'm going to start the start point at 100%. And so you'll notice that, whoops, the text is basically rolling in from the distance. Let me do a quick preview of this. It's actually rolling out and rolling back in. Okay, so I can control each one of them independently, or I can start this at 0 so that it starts. Let me actually remove all keyframes for start. Start where it's at right now and end at 0 so that everything is there when it starts, so when it ends. So I'm going to go ahead and use the end point for this. And then I'm going to go ahead and see the animation for this one frame at a time. Okay. Or one character at a time. So I can go ahead and animate those things. As you can see, each character coming in. And at the same time, I can add another animator for rotation if I want to. So now rotation comes with X, Y, and Z because that animator has been enabled for per character 3D. So you can make those changes to the position and rotation of values one character at a time by using the range selector and also by using the offset. So let's say, for example, you want this to be one character at a time or several characters at a time, you can use the offset. And like I said, all of that can be keyframed. So if I just go ahead and create a keyframe for that here, and create a keyframe just to move like a wave around the text. Let's say, for example, go ahead and apply this to that. Let me go ahead and move the offset like this. So basically when you see that, you're getting the offset of the beginning and end points of that animator pulling and pushing text forward and backward to create the sensation that the text is moving in 3D space. So that is a fairly simple set of effects that you can create with this particular piece of text. Now, let me go ahead and remove those animators. So I'm just going to go ahead and select the text, drop to the animator point, and I'm going to delete the animator. I don't want that animator at this point. What I want to do at this point is I want to create a mask for this layer. So I'm going to select the mask, and I am going to, the text layer, and then I'm going to go to the circle tool, to the ellipse tool, and I am going to create a mask in the center of that layer. Now, with that done, what I want to do is I want to apply that mask to be the path for my text. So when I do so, watch what happens. I'm going to change my path to the text, and now my text is on that particular mask. It's basically following the position of the mask. What would be cool, let me actually rotate. Remember that I do have a camera here. So what would be cool would be to actually have the ability to make that text stand up on the path. So I'm just going to rotate it this much. And because we had set up that text to, actually we did it the way we did before. When we created the text, the sort we had created it, we added an animator to that text. And to do so, I went ahead and said, okay, enable per 3D character. So as long as that is enabled, I can go ahead and click rotation, and I will have rotation values for X, Y, and Z. What that means for you is that you can actually rotate each character on its own axis for X, Y, and Z. This is the X one. This is the one that I was looking for. So let me go ahead and rotate this to 90 degrees. And as you can see now, let me bring my camera down slightly. I now have 3D text that is basically following a circle. And with that text selected, I can go ahead and go back into the path options, and I can start animating this by using the first margin or last margin keyframe options. So if I do that and I go, let's say, to the 2-second mark, and I start moving my first margin, you will notice that my text is rotating in a circle. So if I play this back, I basically get rotating text once again. Okay, this is just text, but the good thing about this is that if I go back to my text tool and I double click on the text, it's live text. So I can change this to, this is actually a line of live text. And basically I can make the changes to what now looks like actual 3D objects by simply retyping the content of the layer. So this is extremely handy in order to be able to work with 3D text. Basically all of these things can, all of the things that we've talked about during the creating text video apply to this. You can go back in and apply all kinds of animators to this thing, with the advantage now of having the Cinema 4D engine that drives things such as texture, material, and so on the actual extruded shapes.